Yo, yo, yo. Yo, 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 yo. Check, check, check. What is this? Episode 7? Welcome to the chat, guys. #1 commentary channel on YouTube. But today we are doing our morning MMA show that we do every Monday morning at 10:30 a.m. And there's plenty to talk about. I'm excited, man. I got a whole list of notes here on the things we have to cover because it all needs to be covered. We're gonna take a look at also as well too. What I want to start implementing is I want to start implementing where of all the winners that we get of fights that we cover, that we talk about who they should fight next. So maybe we can implement that today as well too. That should be fun. Dricus gets a big win. That was one of the fights that I was mostly surprised about more than anything. And I also wanted to quickly who was your fighter of the night? And I thought I put this up earlier, but I know it was Hooker. What a name, Hooker. What's it called? Nickal. Oh, Nickal. See, Dricus du Plessis. A couple people on TikTok were correcting me on how to pronounce his name because I was saying it either wrong, completely wrong, or completely right. There was no in between. Then Hooker, Dricus du Plessis, or who was my other guy? Or Volkanovski. But what a night, guys. Last weekend was phenomenal. There we go. Just had to put that on there. All right, let's get the show started, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming through. I don't gamble anymore. Why is that, man? You were running hot. I think he stopped gambling when the more I took his money. He was like, I'm done doing this. I don't gamble anymore yet because you had DDP winning, right? I went 10-3. So I had a good I had a good night of betting. I put a little bit of money on Volkanovski getting the knockout. I had a 3-fight parlay with Pantoja, Hooker, and Volkanovski. So that worked out really well for me. That was like a $10 parlay to win like $82. I was like, let's go. It's one of those, man, I should have put 20 on it. And then when you do put 20 on it, then you don't get it, right? So it was a risky parlay, but one that paid off. Steve Williams in the building. Let's get it. Cali's in the building. Let's go. Steve the Goat, how you doing? I couldn't remember his picks. I know the Plessis take pissed off my coworker while we were watching the fights, but when he won, my boy said, tell that man I'm sorry. My Plessis argument is the one that pissed him off. I thought it was going to be the Bo Nickal one. Is that who you meant? Because I thought that Whitaker would get the win against Dricus. The one I was wrong about was the Plessis fight. The Dricus, man, Hito not gambling is like Trey without a mullet. I mean, good for you if you don't, says Beta. Your charity is not gambling. Some OGs in the building. I just spilled some. All right. Let's get right to the show, guys. On the menu today, we have the UFC 290 recap. We have Dan Hooker defeating Jalen Turner, Bo Nickal with a first round win, Whitaker versus Dricus, Israel Adesanya going into the octagon, and the rant that he had, as ironic as it was. People didn't expect him to. I have friends, huge Israel Adesanya fans, that were even saying like, man, that was cringy. So we'll talk about that as well too. Moreno versus Pantoja. Me and Beta actually disagreed on who won that fight. I had Pantoja 3-2, maybe 4-1. I know that's a stretch. That's almost like saying Lomachenko, Devin Haney 9-3. People thought that was a little bit wide. 8-4 was a little more acceptable. But Pantoja gets the win. Volkanovski versus Rodriguez. Volkanovski gets the job done by knockout, just like I predicted. But let's start off with quickly saying, man, this Saturday for UFC 290, and hit the thumbs up, guys, helps the channel out immensely, was a night of upsets. More than anything, man. Dan Hooker, Dricus, which was the most surprising upset to me. Pantoja was a slight underdog, but he still got the job done. But he was a slight underdog. But again, it was a bunch of underdogs that won. The Gomes fight as well too. Robbie Lawler was even an underdog, and that's one of the happiest ones that I'm about. Robbie Lawler getting the win, and he retires. But let's quickly start off with some the night of the upsets talk. So let's go right into a reaction of something that Dricus du Plessis had to say after the fight in the post-fight press conference. We'll love to hear some thoughts, but let's get right to it. Here we go. Let's get right to it. This is Dricus after the fight talking about Whitaker. He gave very high praise. Jesus in the building. What's up, my guy? Welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming through this past weekend as well too. This is Dricus after the fight, after the win. He gave high praise to Whitaker, but then the topic of Israel Adesanya comes up, and he had a few things to say. Once I unmute this, hold on a second. Let me. This. There we go. All right, cool. I think we're good now. So this is Dricus after the fight.
Everything he says, anything he's behaving like a clown in there. You know?
So already quickly, he says what many others thought. He was acting like a clown in there. Speaking of Israel Adesanya, throwing the M-bomb like 15 times in a row. To me, I saw a couple jokes online. To me, it was like him saying, just say it once, Dricus. I'm saying it. I keep calling you this. Just say it once.
No, that's not how a champion behaves. That's not how a man behaves. He's behaving like a child. Conduct yourself like a champion. There's people looking up to you and you're behaving like that. Nah. You know, if that sells tickets, good for him.
If that sells tickets, good for him. The thing is that Adesanya doesn't always play the heel in his fights. He accuses Israel Adesanya of acting like a child, and what was not strange to me is Adesanya may have acted like a child, may have been under the influence. But when he steps in that octagon, he is anything but emotional. Speaking of Adesanya, so we'll talk about whether he has a true chance, a realistic chance of Dricus to beat Adesanya. But listen, again, most people out there, even on my TikTok, someone says, "Listen, you're right," and most people don't admit when they're wrong. But many thought that Dricus was going to lose. Dricus pulls off the upset. Now he's talking about Adesanya.
I'll sell tickets my way. I'm a gentleman. I'm a man, and I'll behave like a man.
When you do get in the
And then the reporter asked an interesting question.
octagon with him, how do you think this fight goes? How do you beat him?
I'll knock him out just like I did tonight. You know.
He says, "I'll knock him out." Now, what I wanted to say about that is, it's going to be tough. Adesanya has been knocked out before. He just comes off a win of knocking out Robert Whittaker. I was doing a little bit of research, since I don't have SportsCenter to do it for me, you got to do it yourself, right? Which almost makes it more fun, right? We don't have the show notes. I was doing a little bit of research. Like, I remember Robert Whittaker being knocked out by Adesanya back in, 2019, 2020. But was there anybody else that knocked out Robert Whittaker? I don't remember. Does that claim only hold to Israel Adesanya? No. Back in 2016, Stephen Thompson knocked out Robert Whittaker. So the people that have that title of being able to knock out Robert Whittaker, and I should have left it open in the Tapology. The only people to knock out Robert Whittaker that are alive today and that have only done it is Stephen Thompson back in 2014. So a little bit before I aforementioned. 2014, Stephen Thompson, and then it was Israel Adesanya in 2019. You go to the only other loss besides the knockout to du Plessis, and that is a unanimous decision for Israel Adesanya that many felt that Robert Whittaker won. It was a close fight, wasn't a robbery, but it was extremely close. Only people to knock out Stephen Thompson or to knock out Robert Whittaker, Stephen Thompson, Adesanya. And let's be honest, does anyone really believe that Dricus was going to knock out Robert Whittaker? I thought it would be one of those, listen, Dricus is talking himself into a title fight. He's going to have to get past Whittaker. I don't see that happening personally. That was what I was saying before the fight. And I hope there's plenty that are honest and say and says the same thing. But nonetheless, he gets in there against Robert Whittaker. First minute and a half to 2 minutes and a half of the fight, it was mostly Robert Whittaker leading the dance, using footwork, landing some jabs, feigning, and then landing a jab. He had Dricus, if you guys remember, responding to the feints. And we said that live, and so did many others after the stream. But we said that during the fight. If Dricus is biting off the feints like this, maybe Whittaker wasn't able to make Dricus make him pay. Adesanya will make him pay for biting on almost every feint. Granted, then in the second half of the first round, Dricus started to apply some pressure, had a strong jab, a beautiful outside leg trip, and not only I wasn't impressed with the takedown, but I was even more impressed him getting the takedown and being able to keep Robert Whittaker down there. Nobody really keeps Whittaker on the bottom whenever they are able to get a takedown. Robert Whittaker is so skilled and so crafty in getting back up to his feet, right? So for Dricus to do what he did as far as the outside leg trip, the controlling him on the bottom, I think he got to full side control. It sounds like hyperbole, and is it sort of recency bias? Yes, but I think it's accurate. Super impressed with Dricus being able to pull that off. Jesus says, du Plessis versus Cannonier, winner gets title shot. It's already collectively agreed. Joe Rogan has said it. It appears that Dana White is cool with it. I think the next fight that we're going to get is Dricus for the title shot, Jesus, unless there's barring any injury or anything like that. But I don't believe that's the case. Dricus didn't really take that much damage. Joe Rogan says in the post-fight interview something along the lines of, when you earn the title shot, you're going to get it. I think Dana White is on board. That's the fight that Adesanya wants. The one fighter that I thought would skip ahead Jesus was Sean Strickland. But it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case because even Sean Strickland said it in the Schmo interview. If you guys watched the Schmo, he said, Sean Strickland says, I wouldn't mind playing backseat to Dricus if he goes out there and knocks out Robert Whittaker. He said that before the fight. Maybe saying that thinking that's not going to happen. That's exactly what happens. Let's keep on playing the video.
No.
So to your question, I don't think he fights Cannonier next. I think he goes straight for the title. I will be very surprised if anything other, because not only that, the UFC, they're a business. They want to make the fights that sell the most tickets. Kind of slow pacing the momentum that Dricus has by now after him beating Robert Whittaker, the quote unquote gatekeeper of the division, to give him Cannonier, to me makes no sense. But here we go.
If not, we saw his fight with Alex Pereira. If I get him to the floor, it is not even a fight.
I wouldn't have believed you, Dricus. I wouldn't have believed you if you said this before the Whittaker fight. His ability to control, and I'm sure Adesanya will make the necessary adjustments or at least work on them. I wouldn't believe Dricus if he said this before the Whittaker fight. But he says, if I get him to the canvas, it won't even be a fight.
We saw his fight with Alex Pereira. If I get him to the floor, it is not even a fight. It's not even a fight. If I just get my hands on him, it's not even a fight.
Is Dricus... Is it fair for Dricus to say that? Do we take him seriously after the performance against Robert Whittaker? I know it was one fight. And I know in most cases, one fight is not good enough to go off. But when you insert the name Robert Whittaker as far as the opponent, that's an interesting one, Jesus. We'll talk about that. That's actually an interesting suggestion, because it doesn't seem like Khamzat is going to make 170 anymore. Kamaru Usman talked about it in a post-fight press conference after UFC 290, but let's keep hearing what Dricus had to say.
I will manhandle him.
And Dricus, next to Robert Whittaker, saying this live as well too, Dricus looked big for the division. He just looked like the bigger man against Whittaker significantly. He says, I will manhandle Adesanya.
Done it before and I'll do it again.
Has Adesanya been manhandled before? I would say no, unless you're talking about the Pereira knockout. And not even that. He was leading that fight until the 5th round where he got put out by Pereira. But not only that, the only other fight that he was necessarily manhandled is when he went up in weight to fight Jan Blachowicz. And not that Blachowicz blew him out the water, but it was more so manhandled. Jan Blachowicz was able to take it to the ground and hold him there. Jan Blachowicz was able to land even the more significant strikes because it was up a division and Blachowicz was the bigger man. Dricus says almost identically that he'll do the same thing
again. And you know, as far as the striking goes, let's take that out of the question.
Let's take the striking out of the question.
You are as good as your last performance. What did he?
You're as good as your last performance, and this is something I wanted to allude to.
His last performance looked like against Whittaker. Yeah, he beat.
He knocked Whittaker out in their first fight. And in their second fight, it was a super, super close fight against Whittaker and Adesanya. So he says you're only as good as your last fight, right? That's a very common phrase.
It was a close fight. What did my last performance against Whittaker?
It's a good question. It's a smart question to ask. Well, how did I look against Whittaker compared to Adesanya? Who had the better performance? As far as both of them most recently fighting Whittaker, and I know I'm making a big case for Dricus, but we'll get there to my final point, but he has a point.
It looked like. So right now, that's how I plan on beating him, the same way I beat Whittaker tonight, by implementing the game plan and sticking to my style and doing what we.
And his style is somewhat awkward, somewhat stationary. I remember Hito609 saying this live on Saturday, and look at freaking Hito's profile picture. But good morning, Steve, by the way, too. Speaking of Dricus, Hito said that he looked a little bit stiff, and I have to agree, he did, but it worked. You know, the jab worked, the takedown worked. Beta says Blachowicz manhandled him, but that's an entirely different division. 100% agree with you. That's why I mentioned it. It's an entirely different division where Blachowicz was just a bigger man, and that power just, you know, to go up in weight is very tough to do for fighters. Volkanovski almost got it done against Makhachev, and I can't wait to talk about that about that as well either. But you're absolutely right. It's an entirely different division to what I was alluding to earlier. And MMA math doesn't make sense. Just because Adesanya was able to just win a close decision, and because Dricus now knocks him out, MMA triangle theory, MMA math doesn't necessarily work. You're absolutely right.
You do best. Listening to my coaches, listening to the great Mornay Visser, the great teammates I have at CIT, a small gym in South Africa, coming up with game plans with this awkward style.
Coming up with game plans and this awkward style. Oh, let me also, I forgot to put the call-in number on there. 267-545-8096 if you want to share your thoughts on Dricus and whether he has a chance against Adesanya, and we'll talk about other things as well too. Whatever you guys want to bring up. We do have a voicemail. We have 2 voicemails, so I can't wait to play those. I'm about to play those in a second. 267-545-8096. That's what makes the show interesting. Whitaker didn't look the same. He froze on defense. This is something that we brought up Saturday, man. Our live streams have been cooking, man. So let's keep making them happen because I had so much fun on Saturday. But this is something that I brought up on Saturday. Is Dricus that powerful that he knocked down Whitaker with a jab? Because he switched to southpaw. Maybe that's his dominant hand. Yes, so his powerful hand. But it was still a jab. His right foot was his lead foot. He lands a jab. He knocks down Whitaker. He ends up closing the show. Is it more that Dricus is that powerful? Or is Robert Whitaker chinny? Is the question to you guys. I would love to hear some thoughts. But is Whitaker a little bit chinny? Or is Dricus just that powerful? You heard him say a bit ago that, we come up with my awkward style, we game plan. What's the game plan to beat Adesanya if you're Dricus? Ignore my first voicemail. I rambled. I'm redoing it. Okay. Let me just delete it now before I forget. Okay, let me... Can I delete? I don't even know how to. Archive? All right, cool. I did. We have another one from let's see. I'll play it in a second. Pereira also isn't a good example because Pereira may have weighed in at 185. The man came into the fight at 220. He came in as a heavyweight. And maybe it's scary to think about as well too, Beta. Alex Pereira, in a sense, doesn't belong in the division, right? He's that big, right? Like, it almost seems like he probably should have went up right after he beat Adesanya the first time. But anyways, what scares me for Dricus is biting on those feints. Adesanya, yeah, he's a smart fighter. If the knockout presents itself, he'll get it. But I will say, I think a lot of people sleep on Adesanya's power as well. People claim and accuse of being a boring fighter. But at the end of the day, if he's boring and if he doesn't have power, why are fighters not just straight rushing in? It's because he keeps you honest. Israel versus Du Plessis in Africa. Wow. Wait, hold on a second. Ba, 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 right? Like, Jesus. I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier, man. That's why the chat is goated. What if you guys remember, Dana White has been talking about this a lot. He's been saying, I want to get to Africa. I want to make a card in Africa. He has been saying this over and over again. I hope Dana White thinks so. Imagine Kamaru versus Hamza. Oh my God. Imagine Kamaru versus Hamza. Adesanya versus Dricus in Africa. They don't have Francis Ngannou. They failed on that one as well too. But there's plenty of other African fighters that they could come up with. But imagine those two, Kamaru and Adesanya. Even Leon as well too, being from Jamaica. Here we go. Let's play Beta's voicemail.
This is Beta.
Yeah, that is Beta. There we go. Here we go. Let's hear Beta's voicemail. If you guys want to call in, 267-545-8096, and we'll talk about this card, UFC 290. Let's play it.
I've got a couple of things to say, all right? One, that was the ugliest schoolyard takedown from Dricus to Plessis.
The ugliest takedown by Dricus. All right, let's see what he had to say.
I've ever seen. And Whitaker went, 6 rounds with Yoel Romero, an Olympic gold medalist?
He did. So, Beta, is it because, and I'll play the rest, maybe you're saying, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, you correct me, but it almost seems like you're leading to like, how was Whitaker taken down when he did so well against Yoel Romero? For one, I would say Yoel surprisingly doesn't really go for much takedowns in fights, ironically, right? And two, is it, and you might be right, is it Leon Edwards was able to take down Kamaru in their second fight, right? In the first round. I think that was in a big part because Kamaru Usman didn't expect it. Is it the same because of Whitaker as well too?
I don't know what went on. I don't know what happened. Am I disappointed? Absolutely. But am I surprised that he got like knocked out? Not really.
Am I surprised that he got knocked out? Not really. I was extremely surprised. But let's see what else Beta has to say.
He's chinny, so it's understandable.
I mean, and I know I raised a question, and it wasn't a trap question, but the reason I ask is he might be chinny, and people just weren't able to get to him, because a lot of times when people lose to Whitaker, it's not because Whitaker is getting hit by many shots and just landing the bigger shots. He's kind of outsmarting you and beating you, but not necessarily dominating you as far as like power punches or anything like that. I don't know why it looks like it keeps blurring, but anyways, here we go.
Secondly, if we're all in agreement that Volkanovski won the Islam fight,
which it was close, it could have went either way, in my opinion,
then what Pantoja did in the Moreno fight.
Beta's a sneaky one, man. Here we go. I love it, Beta. Beta's a sneaky one. It's like he gets you to answer the one question to set you up, is what it seems like to me.
That Moreno won that fight.
Shout out to Beta, man, for expressing his thoughts. Let's get to it.
You don't get to just take the dominant position and sit on somebody's back and pretend like you're doing something. The control time, there was only 2 minutes worth of difference in control time. And there were as many reversals as there were takedown attempts. So,
is that accurate? Is that accurate? Let me see. Volkanovski. Before we continue that, Volkanovski versus I'm sorry, not Volkanovski. Pantoja versus Moreno. 3 stats. I know there were about 3 reversals. I think there were more takedowns than that. Takedowns. What? This is the wrong card. Let me see if I could find that. Where are the stats? Can I get the stats, ladies and gentlemen? It's not here. Real quick, I just want to quickly see if I could find. My computer's being slow as well too. I'm gonna have to find the stats. I don't know if there was as many reversals as there were takedowns. I'm not sure that's correct. Don't mean to doubt you, but I'm doubting you. That's UFC 290. Come on. Give me 1 second. All right, this is not it either. I usually find the stats so easily on the UFC website for this fight. I can't find. If someone could link me that, let me know. But according to Beta, there was as many reversals as takedowns. I don't know about that.
Granted, Moreno didn't absolutely win.
Okay, fair enough.
In rounds 3 and 5, I just don't think that I don't think they meant as much for Pantoja either to just sit on somebody's back. It was just disappointing. And then lastly,
I could understand why it was a disappointing when, a lot of people have the sentiment or the belief that to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. But at the end of the day, it's a round by round judgment for the judges, right? I thought Pantoja did enough. Does his striking look pretty? No. And I have no idea why I can't find, maybe if I type it in another way, but also too, if it was close, as you're saying, like as far as like, the control time, the significant strikes were also close as well too. So if it would be one thing if Moreno outstruck him pretty like by a blowout, but that's not the case. That's not the case. I think it was like 117 to 101 as far as the punch stats. So if that's the case, then it is closer than people like. And for some reason, I can't find it, and that's annoying. But either way, let's keep it going.
The Israel.
Maybe if you read the chat, let me see. He trapped you. Right. He brought up the Volkanovski one. Let me catch up. Robert was paid off. Knows what he's doing, says he thought. Robert's just chinny. I think that's what we got to come down to. Is this an MMA channel or boxing channel? Both. What's up, Art Cologne? We cover both. I saw Spence and Crawford, speaking of boxing, All Access episode. No, it's hyperbole. Oh, I'm being okay. I thought you were serious. Damn. All right. He did trap me with the question. Let's keep it going. Maybe a rematch. Close fight, Moreno versus Pantoja. Either guy could have won. 49-46 was a crazy scorecard on the first judge.
Oh, the Plessis thing.
Okay. He's going to talk about Dricus. Here we go. I'm sure Beta's going to have a hot take on this one.
I think Izzy's a fool, but
didn't expect that. Here we go.
It's entertainment, and
I think Izzy's a fool, but it's entertainment. He might have been under the influence as well, too. He had a few drinks.
Gonna watch, because if he's just gonna call him, I don't want to ruin your stream, so I'll just say the N-word. If he's just gonna say the N-word over and over again at the press conference, I'm so for that.
It was funny. Some people take it, man, do I go down this route? I think we go down this route. Freak it. Some people take it super offensive. I thought it was a little overdoing it. If you grow up in the East Coast or the West Coast, we use that word a lot, like normally, right? In any hood, in any, I feel like the people that have the most problem with it is like, and this is what I was more worried to say, if anything, got to be careful on YouTube. I feel like the people that had the most problem with it were like just overseas
payday,
people.
Payday. You want payday?
Let's go.
I know that.
Thank you. Don't let me touch some money, Steve. Let's go. Thank you so much, Steve. He says, let's go, Miller. Keep doing work. I'm off to work. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Steve, for the 10, man. Always supporting and always showing love. Thank you so much, Steve. Means the world. Hope you sell a ton of cars today, man. Go out there and get it, man. Keep providing like you do for your family, man. You're a role model. Thank you so much, man. I feel like the people that had the most problem with it are people overseas. You know what I'm saying? Like in the UK and this and that. But to us, it's like a regular day thing. I don't know. Let's keep it going.
I think the UFC needs that. So I'm going to let you go.
I think the UFC needs that. Interesting.
Moreno won that fight. Moreno won that fight. Says, listen, maybe we haven't done a Twitch stream in a minute where we watch a fight over again. I strongly felt that Pantoja won 3-2 on first watch. I thought at best you could make it 2-2 for Moreno and Pantoja going into the fifth. At best, to help Moreno, it could be 2-2 going into the fifth. Pantoja spent more time looking at the clock in dominant position than anything else. But the key word in that sentence is dominant. He nonetheless was there in a dominant position. Speaking of dominant position, so was Dan Hooker, and he wasn't able to get the job done. That was frustrating. Thank you for the call, Beta. The DC Fight Club member, appreciate you a ton. I guess there was a good amount that we disagreed on. I thought the takedown was pretty crafty of Dricus. I think his power and him being that much bigger than Whitaker, he was able to use it to get that takedown against Whitaker. But against Adesanya, going back to, and we'll play the next call in a second, but listen to what he says here.
The great teammates I have at CIT, they got a small gym in South Africa.
It's a small gym in South Africa that he's at.
Coming up with game plans with this awkward style, this style that looks.
And how he ended the call, I'm assuming that's what you're alluding to. Moreno won.
Completely wrong to so many people. I'm the number one contender in the world.
I'm the number one contender in the world right now. And it's time to put some respect on that is the last thing I would play about Dricus. And he says he gives credit to his team, his style, and his game planning. The word that I want to get stuck to, Moreno 245 says plugs, and he says scoring needs to be looked at. You're right, because the criteria, the damage control, or the damage implemented and how they use that to weigh in on who wins is a little bit unclear, right? The word that I want to focus on for Dricus before we get to the next caller is game planning. How do you game plan for Adesanya? Before I play the next call, I would love to hear some thoughts. How do you game plan for Adesanya? is my question to you guys. What is Dricus' path to victory if there is such a path? You guys let me know. We'd love to hear some thoughts before we play the next call. Mike in the building says, good day, all. Miller, what's up, broski? Welcome to the stream, Mike, the DC Fight Club member with the silver glove. I do agree that Moreno's scorecard was overdoing it. Yeah, that 49-46, 4 rounds to 1 was ridiculous. I just think the UFC made sure Moreno didn't get another draw and have that debacle again. And what do you do with the division if Moreno wins? Do you revisit the Kai Kara France fight? Davison Figueiredo appears that he's not going to make the weight at all anytime soon. I think he should go up. What do you do with Moreno? But back to the question. How does Dricus game plan for Adesanya? If you guys have any suggestions, you can call in and share your thoughts on how he does so, or you guys can write in the chat because I would love to hear some thoughts. The jab was nice that Dricus had. Him biting at all the feints, it might be to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer. This is the fight that I want to see next, but to be somewhat of a Debbie Downer, maybe even though he beat Whitaker, it's too early for Dricus and Adesanya. Maybe he's not as experienced as he needs to be to beat him. Is that fair to say? Thank you once again for the 10, Steve. I hope you have a great day at work. Is that fair to say? Maybe it's still a little bit too early. Whitaker only being knocked out 3 times. Dricus does it. Does he have enough power to take out Adesanya? He surprised the masses. He was humble after the win. He's becoming sort of a fan, not a fan favorite, but he's on the radar for the casual fans to know who he is, especially after beating Whitaker. Let's get to the next call. Hito says, land a lucky shot. LOL. Duplessis is not a wrestler, must kickboxing and Muay Thai. He has good jiu-jitsu. He has a good amount of, oh my God. He has a good amount of, I got to stop Hito. I know Hito's going to let me have it because he always does. Nobody saw that. Let's get right to it. The next call.
This is Beta.
This is a wrong voicemail. Here we
Ignore
go.
that first voicemail. I'm sick. I'm rambling. Don't know.
Ignore the first voicemail. I'm rambling. I could tell by the voice that's Hito. Let's get to it.
I was doing. Anyway. All right. So, all right. 2 things I want to definitely touch on is yeah.
2 things I want to definitely touch on, says Hito. Let's continue.
I want to see who Bo.
I hated how he ended that fight as well too, Hito. Fight of the night, Hooker. Performance of the night, Dricus. You either have to give performance of the night to Dricus or Bo Nickal, right? I think you have to go Dricus because of the level of opponent that he faced and who he did that against, right? Hooker could have had performance of the night if he finished the job, but he wasn't able to. He could have easily had performance of the night, in my opinion. Here we go.
Nickal's gonna fight next. I know he talked about fighting a Dagestani wrestler. He wants to fight one of them, but I don't know who in middleweight's really gonna give him that type of like a challenge that he wants. So I want to see him be tested, like Hamza there was good with Burns, and see if he has like, he's able to go through adversity and come out on top.
You want to see him fight a sort of Dagestani wrestler in the middleweight division. Speaking of Bo Nickal, I'm telling you, Bo Nickal's the American Chimaev. Let's keep going.
That's what I'm seeing next with Bo. Stop toying around with these people that were cutting grass. This guy cut.
Stop toying around with people that were cutting grass, says Hito. Maybe that's fair to say. Trayshawn Gore, the man who was supposed to be his opponent, he had to pull out of the fight due to an injury. So they had to go with Val Woodburn, who was undefeated, 7-0, until he fought Bo Nickal. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about Bo Nickal. Let's keep going with the voice call before we talk more about Bo Nickal. Here we go.
Grass on the side, his last opponent. The next thing, yes, I did say on the call last time that I thought Robert was going to win against DDP, but
thank you for your honesty. In 2023, that doesn't happen often, Hito.
I did write in the chat right afterwards, actually it'd be a better storyline if DDP wins, because then it gives something exciting for Izzy's next fight.
You did. I remember you saying that in chat. You're correct. Hito's not lying for once. Let's keep it going.
Honestly, it would have been cool for Robert and Izzy to fight, but I just, for your casual fans, it's not going to sell as much as like this, this storyline with the white African saying he's from Africa, he's going to win the belt for Africa.
thank you for bringing this up because it is a touchy subject, but a good subject nonetheless. So let's get right to it. That was a crazy pace. So I'm sorry.
Going on his little cringe lord stuff. So it's a better storyline, brings more eyes. So that's good. But I think DDP is probably not going to beat him unless he gets lucky.
Speaking of the Adesanya matchup, he says he doesn't think Dricus is going to beat Adesanya. I want to believe, and I could maybe say why I think there's a way to believe in Dricus because he already proved us wrong once.
I feel like he got lucky with Robert Whittaker, yeah.
Maybe many probably felt that Leon Edwards wasn't going to win. And until he knocked out Kamaru, and then he was able to do it again. I picked Leon, even though Leon knocked out Kamaru was still the favorite in the rematch. I picked Leon. He was the underdog. He got the job done again. Maybe Dricus could play the underdog role one more time and get it done, but a tough hill to climb.
He looks a little stiff.
He does look a little stiff. I agree. Against Whittaker, and he got caught with the jab. And again, I don't mean to make too much of it, but I think it's fair to say the amount of times that he bit on the feints from Whittaker, if he does that against Adesanya, it's not going to be good, I'm telling you. And then if Adesanya starts chopping away at the legs, something Whittaker didn't really do, and slows down Dricus, and Dricus is not the fastest already, Muay Thai masterclass it'll become.
And when you're a champion, there's like a fluidity.
And it's 5 rounds, even though he did look like his cardio was there.
Anybody that's really good, like either contender or a champion, they have this fluidity in the ring, and it's not stiff. And I see a lot of stiffness with DDP, so that's that. Those are my 2 takes there. Ignore the first one.
Listen, great call. The fluidity thing is a factor, but maybe that's part of his game, Hito, for him to, look a little stiff, the way he comes. One thing I was impressed, even though he is a little stiff and his footwork may not be the best or he just hasn't showed it yet, one thing we can say about Dricus is that he didn't rush it. I was surprised. We were saying before the fight, even Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, they were saying for him not to get desperate, but he's going to have to find a way to, fight his fight. A lot of fighters, when they start getting picked apart, that's what they do. They rush it. They get anxious. They get knocked out. They get hurt. And in this case, Dricus looked like he belonged against Whittaker. After the first 2.5 minutes, after the first half of the first round, he looked like he belonged there with Whittaker, and he beat him. Whether he's going to be able to do that against Adesanya and look like he belongs, Adesanya's footwork, his pacing, and just style. Whittaker might do well against Adesanya if they fight a third time, but maybe Adesanya's style is going to be a little bit more troubling. Whittaker has some decent footwork against Dricus, but Adesanya is going to be moving a lot more. And not only that, he's also going to be throwing things to keep you honest, way more than Whittaker was able to against Dricus, in my opinion. Now, if Dricus gets his hands on him and gets a takedown and lands on top, I don't think Adesanya does as good as Whittaker getting back up to his feet. So I'm for that fight. Let's catch up with chat. No, Bo said he wants to fight a Dagestani next. I just don't know who in middleweight. I want to talk so much about that. I'm gonna come right back to the Dagestani thing and Bo Nickal right after this. Let me read the rest of the chat because it's an important point to make, and we'll talk about Bo Nickal next. I love how Volk is so dominant that he doesn't even get talked about for fight of the night and performance of the night. He made Yair look like he was unranked, says Beta. Beta, I'm gonna circle back to that as well too. Volkanovski is not only making an argument that he's the best featherweight of all time. He is, him and Jose Aldo. Hot take. And a lot of people didn't like my hot take until they were proven right as of recent. Another hot take. He might be making a name for him being the GOAT of all time. Just the GOAT, despite weight classes. We'll get there. R. Cologne says, I'm not a big MMA follower. However, if I come across it on TV, I leave it on and watch. Cologne. What I will say is that I'm a huge boxing fan, but boxing a lot of times doesn't give you the enough events. Even though Boots Ennis won this past weekend, and a dominant performance as well, too. And he's calling out Spence and Crawford. It's just a lot of times there isn't that much boxing news to cover, but I will be doing only boxing podcasts soon. So stay tuned. And thank you for coming through and being here despite not so much boxing being covered as of recent. Look past because of what's expected of him. says Mike Dornan to answer Beta. Yeah, he's just that good. A-Rod says checking in all the way from DeSoto, Texas. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm at work right now. Just snuck into the restroom to watch for a little bit. Keep grinding, pimping. Stay up, Miller. Thank you so much, A-Rod. A-Rod was here speaking of boxing, talking about Canelo in the last stream, and he snuck in the bathroom. I hope you heard us. Shout out to A-Rod. Thank you so much for being here and sneaking in the stream during work. I missed the boxing card this weekend, but I saw Ennis highlights. What did you think of that? Ennis is from Philadelphia as well too, so I'm naturally inclined to root for him. We'll see how Spence Crawford plays out. Let's see if Boots is ducked. By the way, 267-545-8096 if you want to share your thoughts on the UFC 290 card. Beta says, Mike, I mean, he did everything right and just looked incredible. Him and Bo were the only safe bets of the night. Volkanovski is damn good. I'm going to circle back to that. I'm going to talk about Bo next. Just want to catch up with chat. Beta Quest says, R. Colon. Shout out Brandon Moreno. He broke his hand in the first round. I read that as well too, and still stuck in there and was piecing him up. And he didn't show any signs that he broke his hand during the fight. Beta Quest, and this looked magnificent. Listen, he needs to fight someone, even though Villa is a good fighter. I hope he gets the big names in his respective division because he might be ready. Is he as big of a star to get those names? Maybe not. But as far as skill set wise, let's circle back to Bo Nickal. Let's circle back to Bo Nickal and talk a little bit about him. A lot to talk about. 267-545-8096. Bo Nickal first round KO win. Let's pat ourselves on the back a little bit, chat. What was I saying during the stream on Saturday that many didn't agree with until right after the performance? I called him the American Chimaev. Back to something that Hito said. Hito said, no, Bo said he wants to fight a Dagestani next. I just don't know who in middleweight. Hot take, Hito. You might not believe me now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be proven right if the matchups are made correctly. For one, Bo Nickal's wrestling will beat a Dagestani wrestler. He'll defend. Dagestani won't be able to take him down unless he's extremely fatigued. And I honestly don't see him doing that with his and I know this sounds extreme because people don't know his background. His collegiate wrestling, his accolades and accomplishments. Unless he's extremely tired for some reason, or he gets stunned, where he gets hit with a crazy right hand, or or a hook that just wobbles him, maybe he gets taken down. Even then, I doubt it. You can obviously tell if it's not already evident. I'm really big on Bo Nickal being the future of the division. I have no or any feelings of embarrassment or shyness of saying that. I think Bo Nickal is that good. If he beats a Dagestani wrestler, or if he fights a Dagestani fighter, he beats him. We talked about Dricus and who he fights next. Let's look at the rankings. I'll pull it up on screen. Let's look at the rankings and think about, what do we do with Bo Nickal? Does he get a top 10 or top 15 in the rankings? Is he the American Chimaev? Let's look at the rankings in the middleweight division. Adesanya being the champ. Bo Nickal, listen, again, jumping the gun a bit. Bo Nickal might be a tough matchup for Adesanya. Adesanya is also a tough matchup for Nickal if he's not able to get close enough. And the striking of Adesanya might be just too good right now. I agree. The Thurman fight is a good one, Beta. But just to stick to the topic now, the top 15 is right here for Bo Nickal. First round knockout. Many thought that his only path to victory was to win by wrestling and submission, and some say he didn't look that good in his grappling in his first fight in the UFC. He's not necessarily a submission artist, but as far as a wrestler, he's dominant. What impressed me was his knockout power and the power that he carried into fighting Val Woodburn. He wanted to make a statement. I thought it was somewhat risky, not so much, but it paid off, where he wanted to show that he can also strike as well too. Is his striking the most impressive, or in his division? Is it does it is it mind blowing? Is it up to par with even a Sean Strickland? Maybe not. If it's just a striking match, maybe Sean Strickland beats him, of course. Maybe Whitaker beats him. But again, it's an MMA fight. I just think in this particular case, he wanted to show that he can wrestle or that he could strike with anyone. And he wanted to show that he has knockout power. Now when they have a scouting report or they have to game plan against Bo Nickal, they don't only have to talk about the takedowns. They can say, look, he could be a little bit sneaky and land something big. Don't let him also catch you with something big in the striking department. The name that I mentioned to kind of fast track Bo Nickal in the middleweight division, I thought the perfect candidate to me, unless you guys have a different name, is number 8th ranked fighter Derek Brunson. Is Bo Nickal really that good? Give him Brunson. Let us find out. Brunson's gas tank is not the best. He is also a little bit chinny, but he has faced the top fighters in that division. And if Bo Nickal gets it done, that means he's able to be an experienced fighter. Maybe not the best fighter, maybe on the back end of his career, maybe his best days are behind him, speaking of Brunson. But he's still number 8 in the world. Why not fast track him? Kelvin Gastelum is going down to 170. There's names like Imavov, Muniz, Curtis, Sean Strickland. I just wouldn't make that because then you kind of stain his name if Strickland loses. Paulo Costa, still a little bit too early. I think he beats Costa. People hated that take. I think Bo Nickal today beats Paulo Costa. I'm not too high on Paulo Costa though as well too. I think the perfect name for Bo Nickal, who knows what the UFC has prepared or have in mind for Bo Nickal, I say give him Brunson. Crawford was born for this, says our man. I might need to talk some boxing. Shout out to Brandon Moreno. Yep. Let's catch it with chat. I want him to fight Thurman now. I think it's time to give him a real challenge. Me too. The problem is that it's always going to be one of those Thurmans, the Spencer Crawfords. They're giving Ennis a shot with not much to win as far as if they do get the victory. Buddy was Miller sized. Am I the wrong for not caring about that? Dude look like me in there. Wait, who's that? Beta Quest, I agree. Who do you got, Crawford and Spence? I'll tell you that I have Spence. Hamzat versus Bo for the middleweight belt in 2 years. I think Hamzat's going to find himself only fighting at middleweight. That's another interesting fight. I would say too, again, in strictly a wrestling match, Nickal beats Hamzat. You got to look at their backgrounds. You got to remember Hamzat had a tough time taking down Gilbert Burns. If he can't take out Gilbert Burns in an MMA fight, he's not taking down Bo Nickal unless he hurts him. Crawford was born for this. Ennis was out there doing his best Emmanuel Augustus impression. They said he was shape-shifting or something like that. I think Showbiz was saying something along those lines, but he hit the slow-mo. It looked impressive. And it went a full 10, right? And that's where he got the knockout in the 10th round, or was it the 11th? Duplessis was passed. Duplessis must pass more tests before the champ. Even if you were right in that assessment and we need to see more, he beats Whitaker. Not only that, if Dana White says he's going to get the title shot next, and if Joe Rogan says he's going to get the title shot next, if Adesanya says he's going to get the that he wants that shot next against Dricus, I think he's going to go straight to it, but it might be too early. Too late, Jesus. Dana's definitely going to have DDP versus Izzy. Absolutely. 267 5. We'll get better at hiding the screen. 267-545-8096. If you guys want to share your thoughts on the future of Bo Nickal, they should make Bo versus the winner of Craig. Yes, I like that one. I actually mentioned Paul Craig in the last stream. Brunson is a great way to elevate Bo into the rankings. And it kind of sucks for Brunson, right? Unless Brunson could be that gatekeeper that says, listen, the same way Max Holloway did it against Allen. Brunson could be that guy that beats him and says, look, you're not ready yet, or he might be that good, just like they did with Li Jingliang and Hamza. I think Lee was like number 11 or 12. if I'm not mistaken. Or who was the first name that they gave in the top 15 for Hamzat? I thought it was Li Jinglan. I might be mistaken. Someone correct me on that, if anything. But give Bo Nickal Derek Brunson. That's the fight that needs to be made. And if it does happen, we got to pat ourselves in the back in this chat, because that's a perfect name, I think, Beta. I would say Bo's opponent on Saturday. Brunson is a great way to elevate Bo into the rankings, then give him Vettori. Vettori is durable enough to make it interesting because Bo Nickal is still young. In a sense, inexperienced when it comes to MMA. But let's continue the great discussion. Thank you guys for making this discussion quite interesting, because I believe that a lot has transpired this past weekend and it makes it interesting. But let's talk about not Moreno versus Pantoja. Let's move on to, we haven't talked about Dan Hooker and that performance, but I think it was T that said Dan Hooker has lost 4 fights before getting this win, but you got to remember the names that he lost to. Was a great point. Maybe we could circle back to that. Let's talk about, and actually give credit, because I feel we're not doing that enough as far as the fans and the commentators and the reporters. Volkanovski versus Rodriguez. Plug says, I don't think they give Bo a ranked opponent. I think they should. They might not. They might keep, slow tracking him, but I think they should. Until another year. I think it'll be earlier. I think even this year they give him a ranked opponent. And they kind of do what they did with Hamza Chimaev. And they keep him busy. They keep him active. They move him up the rankings pretty quickly. We'll find out who's right, Plugs. But Plugs, to give you credit, I'm happy I remembered. Plugs did say that Dricus was going to win this past weekend. And not many said that. Plugs was one of the only ones. So we got to give him the credit. Plugs, the UFC loves phenoms, yes, and they need stars. They need big names. Is on his way out. The best way to get a young hype train into the talks. I think Brunson is the perfect name. I think he's a perfect name for Bo Nickal. Let's move on. Volkanovski and Rodriguez. Let's talk about Volkanovski, man. How different will his career be if he officially won against Islam Makhachev? And Hito has brought that up before. I don't know why my camera keeps doing that. But anyways. Imagine if he officially beat Islam Makhachev. If we look at the pound for pound rankings, I know I've complained about this before. I believe Volkanovski should still be number 1. I don't even think John Jones should be number 2. Just because he came back and won against a Cyril Gane pretty quickly. You look at his prior wins. He won a unanimous decision against Dominic Reyes, but it was close. Many felt it should have went to Dominic Reyes. Thiago Santos was a close fight, split decision. Anthony Smith, and then that was back in 2019. For him to still be the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world is a little bit strange to me. I think Volkanovski is the best fighter on the planet. Yair Rodriguez had good moments. Yair Rodriguez, the scissor kicks, he landed. What I would have wanted to see Yair Rodriguez do more was the front kicks. If you guys remember, he landed like 2 to 3 front kicks early in the fight. And he kept trying to mix it up and land some scissor kicks, some kicks to the body, some teeps. That front kick was a thing, and it's easy to say in hindsight, right? But those front kicks were scary, and Volkanovski gave him the nod as if giving him credit pretty early in that fight. I picked Volkanovski to win by knockout. I thought that eventually Yair will make a mistake or get fatigued where Volkanovski will get the job done. I really felt that Yair started to look more and more comfortable, and that was going to be his detriment. And that's what happened. Yair started to have more success on the feet, almost as if, and I don't mean to criticize Yair too strongly, because Volkanovski is, to me, the best fighter in the world right now. But to his detriment, is almost as if highlight as if. It's almost as if he forgot how dangerous Volkanovski was on the feet in the striking department. Why so? Because Volkanovski, we started calling him Islam Volkanovski, and then someone on TikTok called him like Alexander Makhachev or something like that. The evolution of Volkanovski in the UFC, to me, is one of the most impressive things that I have ever seen. I thought Petr Yan, weird name that I'm going to just bring up out of nowhere. I thought Petr Yan was going to be that guy. When he need Aljamain Sterling in that fight, he was seconds away from being a champ. Aljamain Sterling did the Spider-Man. Petr Yan made a mistake. I thought Petr Yan was going to win the rematch. It's all good. He loses to Aljamain Sterling. I'm like, all right. It was close. He'll get that shot again. He fights Merab. He loses to Merab. He was just kind of like on, it kept getting worse and worse for Petr Yan. But I thought he was going to be one of those, many felt he was going to be one of those pound-for-pound fighters. Volkanovski beats Holloway. Is like, okay, but what is Volkanovski's ceiling? He has no chance against Makhachev, right? To be quite honest, he was damn near close. Many felt he won that fight. The evolution of Volkanovski, and I want to focus on his wrestling. I think the confidence that he gained, maybe one of the best things that happened was not necessarily losing to Makhachev, but feeling Makhachev in the octagon and that style of wrestling. Imagine you're Volkanovski right now. To calm that ego down must be tough. Because if I'm Volkanovski, if I'm in Australia, I'm sitting on my couch like this and I'm thinking to myself, damn, man, nobody could really F with me, right? That's what, and what I mean by that is not necessarily the striking. I'm thinking to myself, there's no 145-pounder out there that could take me down. So now, not only do I have some of the best striking in the UFC, in the world, if it gets a little bit dangerous for me, I'm a wrestle, and I'm good at that too. Yair couldn't really stop him. Or if there's a strong wrestler that comes after me in 145 that makes his way up, they don't have a chance. Volkanovski, all around, to me, is the best fighter in the UFC, and I think he's the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I think Volkanovski is that damn good. Ilia Topuria, I think it's a little bit early for him to fight Volkanovski, but not only that, Volkanovski might move up to lightweight, and if he beats Makhachev, I was thinking to myself, does Makhachev even have a threat in the 155 division that's not Volkanovski? Does anybody in the top 10, top 15 you look at, and that speaks volumes to Volkanovski's skill set and how great he is. Look at the top 15, which is to your left right here. Is there anybody out there that you say, damn, they can beat Makhachev? Oliveira, maybe. Oliveira, I feel, is like one of the biggest wild cards. One of the biggest wild cards. But besides Oliveira, I have no confidence that 2 through 15 can beat Makhachev. If Volkanovski's name was there, I say to myself, oh, now we're talking, right? That's how great Volkanovski is. And when it's all said and done, he might, I don't want to jump the gun. And at the same time, I can't fathom why he's not mentioned as being the greatest to ever do it. Is that a little bit too far? 267-545-8096 if you want to share some thoughts on Volkanovski versus Rodriguez or UFC 290, or when we look ahead to UFC 291, feel free to call in. Let's catch up with chat a little bit. Having a good time talking some fighting. Here we go. Beta, good point about the Brunson thing. Hito says he would have been the GOAT if he beat Islam. I mean, he's pretty close now, but that would have solidified it. The problem with the Islam argument is that although Makhachev is one of the best fighters pound for pound in the world, he's not proven in the sense that he hasn't fought enough top fighters. But I think that loss against Makhachev, if he never gets to fight him again or beat him, the more successful Makhachev becomes, the more that credits Volkanovski and his performance, which is great for Volkanovski. And again, I think he's close to becoming arguably the best. to have ever done it. Beta says, I mean, who did Hamza beat to deserve the spot he got so quickly? Point. I don't even really disagree that he should take another year. I just think the UFC is desperate to fill these superstar spots. I feel strongly about that as well too, Beta. Maybe we could go down this path, but I think the UFC is somewhat, not majorly, but they're somewhat struggling with having stars to represent the company. I think the failure of McGregor not coming back, I'm not saying McGregor is one of the best fighters in the world, but ticket sales wise, the eyes that he brings to the sport, I do believe that the UFC is struggling with having names that the casual fan knows. I have a friend of mine that, and he's a good measure. When Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis was about to happen, he was, excited for the fight. He knew it was going to happen. When McGregor fights, he knew it was going to happen. Or the rumblings. You ask him about Adesanya, he doesn't necessarily know the history of him and Pereira. You ask him about Leon Edwards, he's not going to know who that is. You look at the faces of, he doesn't know who Moreno is. He knows who John Jones is. Sterling is not that big of a star. Jamal Hill. Zhang Wei Li in China, I'm sure she's a big star, but in the US, not so much. I think the UFC is genuinely struggling with having big names to appeal to the casual fan. And that's why they need to fill it. Bo Nickal might be, and I know this is a little bit premeditated, Bo Nickal might be one of those names that they can, or they're desperate to make a superstar because they need him to. He's American. He's from Pennsylvania. He speaks well. Fans like him. He's known in the wrestling world. They need fighters like himself. And that's why I think they gave him someone like Brunson early. Yeah, Air looked good in the third, but I think that headbutt really affected him. You think so? That's a tough one, man. If it did, maybe we'll never know, but you might be right because he was gaining momentum until the headbutt, and then he took some time off. You might have a point. Nice listening in. Have a good show. Peace. Thank you so much, Cologne. Great to have you back. We'll check you back soon. One more round and Islam was done. 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds, maybe. 40 more seconds. And Islam, his gas tank was empty. And Volkanovski was ready to keep fighting. You give him 30 more seconds, maybe like 45, he might get the finish against Islam. Maybe. Topuria versus Volk. That's going to be the next fight. They had a little bit of a run-in at the end of the they had a little bit of a running at the end of the fight when they were in the stands. I'm sorry. As much as I like Topuria, I don't think he's ready. And I would even go as far as to say, and there is no one in the division left for Volkanovski to fight. Hopefully maybe he moves up and Ilya fights for like the interim. But I do believe strongly that it's a bit too early. It's a bit too early for Ilya right now. Volkanovski is just that good. That's credit to Volkanovski. Armin probably the only challenge. Saryukin is a good fighter, but I just don't believe that he, man, I thought Beneil was going to be the one to give Islam the most trouble, and you saw what happened against him and Oliveira. So let me see if I got anything else on the menu right now, but I think I covered everything besides being frustrated with Dan Hooker not able to finish and close the show. He really had a chance to put on performance of the night if he were able to take out Jalen, and he wasn't able to do so. Topuria versus Volk in December. How strongly do you give Topuria a chance? I honestly think he doesn't have a chance. Maybe hot take and maybe not so great take. I know Francis Ngannou wasn't the biggest star in the UFC, but he was somewhat known. That doesn't mean people are going to buy their tickets, but again, appearance is everything. I think losing Ngannou was a bigger deal than people projected it to be. Because look at the faces in the UFC of every title and what the casual person knows. Most people are not going to know who Jamal Hill is if they're not huge UFC fans. Most people are not going to know who Brandon Moreno is unless they're Mexican or big UFC fans. Makhachev is making a name for himself, but even then, let me quickly look at the rankings again. Aljamain Sterling, most people are not going to know who he is. Volk, to me, the best fighter in the world. Leon, most people, again, outside of the UFC, I think they're struggling to make stars. You guys might disagree with that. You can call in 267-545-8096 and share your thoughts, but that's why they need to progress a name like Bo Nickal. They don't have that many options, in my opinion. I mean, we keep gassing up Bo for fighting Miller. I know that's not fair to be considering his opponent dropped out. I am just not going to sing his praises for that fight. I more so sing his praises not because of who he beat, but more so the potential that he has, Beta. If that's fair enough to say, if that makes sense as well too. I just feel like I see how great he is before he's able to display that. And that's why I keep bringing up how Brunson is a perfect name. If imagine, hypothetically, let's go down the hypothetical route. Hypothetically, let's say Bo Nickal fights Brunson and does the same thing to Brunson that he did to Woodburn. Now we have a potential star in our hands. What Ian Machado Gary did to Daniel Rodriguez, that's helping him get up there in the rankings. But he needs to do that maybe against another bigger name. Imagine Gary, who I like. Imagine he does that to like a Gilbert Burns, potential star in our hands. Imagine Patty somehow in the lightweight division beats someone like Gamrot or Fiziev. Not going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, that's what creates stars. You need those young and up and coming fighters to get incredible, outstanding wins. All I'm saying is if he beats Brunson and blows him out the water, we might have a star in our hands. Just like Gary, if he does something like that to Gilbert Burns. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying for these fighters to really be recognized. Conor McGregor, for him to become a star, if he doesn't beat Jose Aldo in the fashion in which he did, he wouldn't be where he's at today. To become double champ and do it in the fashion in which he did is a memory that most fans won't ever forget. You need those kind of performances to build up a star. And then you add to that Conor McGregor is really great behind the mic. Who else is really great behind the mic that either plays the heel or people want to see? Really think about that. John Jones isn't the greatest behind the mic. It's almost as if his lifestyle outside of the octagon is what keeps people interested. Nobody else really has that kind of star power. Adesanya, even though he kind of turned heel a little bit in this past weekend, he's not the biggest trash talker, but he is a big name. But besides that, Leon Edwards isn't going to give you that. I don't mean to make too much of it, but I do believe that the UFC is struggling with having the big names. Francis Ngannou almost didn't need that if he's known as being the baddest man on the planet, but now they lost that. You know, if that makes sense. You're going to talk about how Dana is just trying to bury every Ngannou announcement and update. When Ngannou signed to the PFL, he came out with the news of like 3 cards that same day, right? Was it coincidence? I don't think so. Because when Ngannou is arguably, or there's rumors, there's rumblings that he's going to fight Tyson Fury, he's also coming out with other cards. So is it premeditated? I would say yes, Beta. That's why they need to push Covington. Sugar, Sean O'Malley is a great name that I forgot to bring up next. That is why Covington is getting the shot against Leon Edwards. That's why O'Malley is getting a shot against Aljamain Sterling. And almost needs these fighters to win. That's why Bo Nickal, we're talking about him fighting a top 15. If it was a meritocracy, he would have to wait longer. That's why Hamzat, we're dying for. We maybe get him versus Usman in Abu Dhabi in October. The problem is Usman came out with an interview. It's on the Mac Life. If you guys want to see that, very, very good interview. If you guys get a chance, where is it? Just so I could bring it up for you guys. If you guys see this interview right here, great interview. You see the people in the comments really giving Usman some credit on the way he spoke. Usman said he wanted to fight against Hamzat, but Hamzat can't make 170 or doesn't want to. I don't know if he wanted it at 185. Usman is saying, no, I want it at 170. I want to come back. Usman spoke well of himself. He spoke nicely and well of Colby Covington and Leon. He's mature. If you read the comments, people are really happy with Usman and where he's at mindset-wise. But I truly believe it's speculative, but I do believe maybe Hamza just doesn't fight at 170. And that might be a problem because how does he fare against the people in the middleweight division? I don't think he beats Adesanya. If he struggled that much against Gilbert Burns at 170, he might struggle with someone like Whitaker. So the names that aforementioned by Hito, great names to bring up. That's why they need to push Covington, Sugar, Bo Nickal, Hamza. O'Malley's a good one because he appeals to the younger crowd. He's a big name. If he pulls off a Conor McGregor versus Aldo, speaking of O'Malley knocking him out early, Sean O'Malley, even though he's already a star, he's a superstar if that happens. That still benefits his name greatly. And the UFC, I'm sure, would love that. Because Aljamain Sterling isn't the most pleasing champion. And I know I'm going off a rant, but this is kind of fun to do, just talking about all these other things. We covered UFC 290. There's plenty to talk about. 267-545-8096. We're about to get out of here soon. Let's keep reading chat before we do so. I give Topuria a better chance than Yair. I was high on Topuria. I said he would beat Bryce Mitchell. I said he would beat Emmett. I'm not. And it's easy for us to say because Yair lost. But I don't know if Topuria brings anything to the table that makes me confident that he has a better chance than Yair did. Is all I'm saying. Kobe's good behind the mic. People like him. He's gonna his way in to be a substitute for the Usman versus Edwards fight had like 1 million views. That's why he's getting the shot. In my opinion, is because he's a name. Does he deserve it before Bilal? No. But they're in need of some stars, and they're smart in business wise and taking that route. Yeah, I hear you, but Woodburn looked like me or you. He might be like my height, man, and is fighting at middleweight. What's Val Woodburn's weight? I think he's like 5'8". I'm super short, but I think he's like 5'8". Yeah, he was 5'8" against a 6'1" Bo Nickal. So you're right. They could have just threw us in there, and it would have been quite interesting. I do think with the buzz his name has, you have a great point for feeding him some good opponent. You have to take advantage now because there is if a prime Conor McGregor is still around, if a Anderson Silva is still around, then maybe you don't push Bo this quickly. You know what I'm saying? If GSP is still around, huge names. Right now they're at a lack of names. I feel strongly about that. That's why you got to give him a big fight now. My issue is more that people say he earned the performance bonus. I was impressed with him winning by knockout. Does he deserve a bonus? I would rather give that to Dan Hooker, even though Dan Hooker should have closed out the show. But that was a great fight and against a tougher opponent in Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner is massive for that weight class too. Credit to Hooker. A lot of people didn't give him a chance. We need him at middleweight. Imagine Bo Nickal versus Hamzat. Imagine Bo Nickal takes down Hamzat and dominates him on the ground, or vice versa. It's a fight that I would pay to watch. UFC 290, by the way, on paper maybe wasn't the most exciting, but it exceeded expectations. Maybe Hamzat versus Bo, battle of the prospects. That's not a bad one. We've been live for I think like an hour and a half, hour 18. So these hours or these shows go by so fast. We'll eventually get to like a Monday, Wednesday, like the MMA hour eventually, right? Or something like that. But doing this every Monday morning is one of my favorite things to do. I think we went over every fight. We went over Bo Nickal, Dricus, Israel Adesanya going crazy in the octagon. Moreno Pantoja. I think that's going to be, even though Moreno broke his hand, do you skip Moreno and give the shot to someone else? What if, that's another thing. What if Albazi, what if that sets up the fight for Albazi to fight Pantoja? I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC does that, especially in Abu Dhabi. Who do you think fights Islam in October? Might be too early for it. Volkanovski. What if Gaethje beats Poirier? The thing is, he lost already. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do with Islam. It's a tough one. Oliveira, if he's ready. Oliveira, if he's able to get ready in time, I think that's the obvious matchup that they're gonna make. I don't know why I overlooked him earlier, but after what he did to Beneil Dariush in the fashion in which he did, I think that's what they do next. The problem is that Moreno broke his hand. And if they're trying to fast track Albazi, Amir, that's probably what they do. Moreno should take time off after that war. He should. He broke his hand as well, too. And he took a good amount of punishment. I don't think Moreno is getting that rematch right away. Why so, Beta? Is it because he needs time to rest? Or is it because the UFC might just want to take another route? Because imagine Moreno beats Pantoja. What do you run that again? It's like the flyweight division is somewhat stagnant. They got to find a way to make, again, back to my argument, they got to find a way to bring up other names instead of the same ones that we keep bringing up for every, like, for example, we're still thinking about Poirier, Gaethje. No disrespect about them fighting for the title again. I'm tired, personally, no disrespect to Poirier. I'm tired of seeing Poirier fight for the title. I will be okay with him just having big, massive fights against stars. But I'm kind of tired of seeing him fight for the title. I kind of don't want to see, even if Covington beats Leon, kind of tired of seeing Usman and Colby fight. I'll be okay with never seeing them fight again. I'm okay with, especially after Whitaker losing, I'm okay with even if Adesanya beats Dricus. I'm okay if Whitaker and Adesanya never fight again. We need some fresh blood. Now, Hill versus Prohaska is one that I actually do enjoy thinking about that fight. Royval versus Pantoja 2 should be next, says Plugs. Charles said he ain't ready. Well, there you go. Unless they make him wait, but I feel they're going to be forced to have Makhachev on that card. They need him to sell in Abu Dhabi. So you're right. It's a tough one. What do you do? What do you do with Islam Makhachev? What do you do with Islam Makhachev? His last fight was against Volkanovski, but that was back in February, so he's going to be ready. There's Michael Chandler out there. It appears that the McGregor fight's not going to happen. I don't know. It's a great question. Do you do Chandler? Do you do the winner of Poirier and Gaethje? They're in a tough spot. Yeah, that's the problem with that division at 125 at flyweight, Beta. Dan's Plug, that sucks. He's smart for that, though, because if it's in Abu Dhabi, he isn't getting a decision. Good point about the Abu Dhabi thing as well, too. Maybe he doesn't want to fight in Abu Dhabi and saying freak that. I wonder what's next for Paulo Costa as well, too. It's going to be interesting. I'm sure we get some news. I would say maybe Francis Ngannou comes out with some news, and then we'll be sure that UFC will announce something right after that. We know Justin versus Dustin is going to be a war, so they won't be ready. That's a good point as well, too. So they're out the picture. Poirier, Gaethje, and I don't really care for them to fight for the title anyways, even though Gaethje looked good against Fiziev. So you're right. Poirier's not available. Gaethje's not available. Oliveira's not available. But Neil lost. I don't think obviously you don't give him the shot. I would be very surprised if that happens. Chandler? Or is Makhachev just not on the card? Risky in the building. What's up, man? Hope everything is well. By the way, guys, I forgot to ask earlier. I forgot to ask earlier. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. I completely forgot to ask. Hit the thumbs up, which helps the channel. We're almost at double digits, so let's make that happen. Very fun stream tonight, man. Every Monday morning. These are like my favorite thing to do besides the live streams. Up next, I don't think we're gonna be covering the Holly Holm fight. Let's see, which is next week, and it's kind of a sleeper of a card, anyways. We are sponsored for UFC 291, which is dope, but for the Spence versus Crawford. But I think we're gonna be able to cover both. Hopefully, Spence and Crawford get out there earlier, and maybe by the time we get back to the UFC, we get to cover Blachowicz, Pereira, or Costa versus Aliskarov, hopefully. Tony Ferguson should hang it up. Chiesa versus Holland is an interesting one. If you guys haven't seen either, too, just to promote other YouTubers, right? The Schmo had a basketball game where Kevin Holland was in there, Phil Rowe, the Schmo was playing ball, Daniel Cormier was there. They weren't the best ballers, but it was an entertaining video. Hey Miller, are you watching on Saturday? It's free on the Zone if you have a subscription. I do, so maybe I'll tune in on that. I do have the Zone subscription, so I wonder who else is on the card. I'll look up some information on that. Guys, thank you for another fun Monday morning. We're doing this every Monday morning at 10:30 a.m. Thank you for those that called. That made it very fun for Hito and Beta for the calls and your thoughts on UFC 290. Every Monday morning, 10:30. I'm going to get out of here. #1 commentary channel on YouTube. We know the Spence fight will be on during the... Bro, it kills me, plugs. I know I'm being overly optimistic in saying that because you're probably right. That's exactly what's going to happen. Spence and Crawford are going to be doing the walkouts when Jan Blachowicz and Pereira just finished. Kevin Holland is the go-to name for a filler name. Yo, did you hear Dan Hooker says he was offended they offered him Tony Ferguson? No, I did not. Did he say that in the post-fight press conference? Because I'll go check that out. If you guys have any suggestions on some shorts that I should do, and I know I say that sometimes and I don't get it done, but nonetheless, if you guys do, please let me know. But we're gonna a couple of I guess not logistics, but a couple of on the good end, if you guys are wondering, just some news before we get out of here. That Dricus du Plessis knocking out Whitaker highlight, 3.3K views. That's really good for my channel. And look at the shorts number, 3.3, 856, 2.3K, 1.6. They're doing good. We haven't made videos as of recent, but the shorts numbers, they're increasing. The lives, 2.2K, and these are in the hundreds, then 300, 276. So the 2.2K was really good this past weekend. We had the 1.4K. Those are good live numbers. 7.2K in the Haney versus Lomachenko. Boxing always does well. So that's why I'm so focused on the shorts. They do good, and they also do really good on TikTok as well too. Let me. I think we were at 5,000 the last time. An interesting interest that I have. I like battle rap. Yeah, I was at 5,000. Now I'm at 5,500. So that highlight was doing good. We got to keep thinking of interesting ways to keep getting views. You know what I mean? It's just a game that I have to play. When is the next member stream? I would do one at 5 a.m. if you guys were available. Pick a day for me, man. Hito, I don't mind. You're a member, so of course you have a say. What about like a Wednesday at 5 or a Thursday at 5, or 6 o'clock? Please give me some suggestions. I would love to make it happen. And if you guys have suggestions on what to talk about for those member streams, that would be great as well too. Weigh-in press conference. No, I didn't see. I didn't see that, to be quite honest. I would love to turn back on that. Yeah, Hito, let me know, because we haven't done a member stream in a minute where we talk about things like this, right? Analytics, where the channel is headed. We've been live for like an hour and a half, a little bit over, 128. So that's a good time to get off. Thank you guys for a very, very fun live stream. Thank you for the call-ins. Let's get out of here. #1 commentary channel on YouTube. I see the viewership going up as I'm heading out, but that's okay. It was a fun stream that hopefully has good replay value. So hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up if you're new here every Monday morning, 10:30. I'll catch you guys soon. Thank you guys for the ongoing support. Thank you for all the members. Helps the channel grow. I see you guys in the stream. Much love. God bless. Have a good rest of your day. We'll be back soon. You'll see the shorts coming out. If you have any ideas on what content to make, please let me know as well too. God bless. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.